crew. No, you need a shower.
Welcome, Gothamites, to another episode of the Arkham Sessions. My name is Brian Ward. With me, as always, the psychologist to the superheroes, superheroines, and supervillains of Gotham City and beyond. She's Dr. Drea Letamendi. Hello, Drea.
Hi, Brian.
We are back. We are back to playing with one of our favorite villains turned hero of her own show, Harley Quinn. And this is coming off of a very successful episode. We got a lot of feedback about our analysis of Joker Folie à Deux. And now we are back to the animated series, which everyone seems to universally love.
I am enjoying the animated series, and having just watched the Joker 2 movie, going back to Harley Quinn animated series was just a nice
Palate cleanser.
Yeah, I had to think about this a little bit more, that an animated version of Harley was just much more rich and bold and you know, digestible, and the screen version of her in Joker 2, I just feel, I've said this before, I think, but I just feel it was very, like, the only word I can think of is nerfed. You know, the word nerf, like when a character is nerfed, they're weakened.
Typically a game is nerfed, but yes. Yeah, you can nerf a character too, I suppose.
It's not as if she had all these powers and they took them away. It's as if
she had a lot of personality and they took it all away. They took it all away.
They took it all out. It's as if I'm trying, and maybe you can delve into the like cinematic mood, because I know it's meant to pull up some like grimy 80s tone. I don't know what they were going for, but the female character is missing a lot. And Harley Quinn is meant to be intellectually bold, emotionally bold. It's just like she was so flat. We got a message from one of our listeners who goes by Enzo.
Oh, yes.
Who also felt that the Joker 2 was lacking in the showmanship that we all expected from both Harley Quinn and Lady Gaga.
Okay. Dre, why don't you play that audio for us?
I will. I shall.
For me personally, I wanted more pageantry. I wanted more Lee. I wanted more Gaga costumes, Harlequinade, pantomime inspiration, clown inspiration, and I felt like it was really just this beating up of this character, that the morals felt all backwards to me.
Why cast someone as personality driven as Lady Gaga if you are not going to take advantage of everything she brings to that table?
For the singing.
No, I mean, just even for remember, what a lot of people don't remember necessarily is that when Lady Gaga came onto the scene, you could not see her without some sort of silly, over-the-top costume or outfit or whatever. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, because this isn't the part of pop culture I tend to follow, but wasn't Lady Gaga the one that came to like some award show in a meat dress? And
for sure, yeah.
So where's that? Where's that Lady Gaga? Where is, like, you're like, that's Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn is the type to be over the top, and this lady was not.
She's supposed to be a showstopper. Yeah. Lady Gaga and Harley Quinn. You wanted in the courtroom the woman who wasn't simply going to stand up, whisper something, and walk out.
In that case, I get it.
What part do you get that I don't get?
in like Lady Gaga is a showstopper, as in like right before the intermission of a giant stage musical, you play that show-stopping number that gets you excited and exhilarated, and you can't wait for Act Two. Lady Gaga from this film stops the show entirely every time she's on the screen. It just comes to a dead halt. There is no story that moves forward. There is no character development that moves forward. Everything she says is a lie. So I guess in that case, she is in fact a showstopper.
Yeah.
In both senses of the word.
It's
one
just,
is positive and one is very much not.
It's so disappointing because she's such a talented person. And
well, I'm not going to blame her. She didn't write the script.
And I wonder, I mean, she's just she's shallow. Sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la. You don't remember that?
Again.
Okay.
You're talking about
my point being,
Born. Okay.
when she was in A Star is Born, it's and I know that's a completely different character, but full of depth, full of psychological depth. This character, I wonder if they were going, and I know this episode is not about the Joker too, but I'm wondering if they're going for, I hate to say it, but like the crazy lady. Do you know what I mean? The like, she's in a psychiatric ward willingly. Like, that's how crazy she is. I do know what you mean, but she didn't play it.
I mean, if you're going to play Harley as the quote unquote crazy person,
yeah,
then
it's so tropey, like the femme fatale, the crazy bee, like it just like, you're really going to go in that direction?
I was going to say you go with the Margot Robbie, the unhinged. You're not quite sure what she's going to do next. She can be both funny and dainty and beautiful and scary, and she plays that crazy version.
But in defense of Margot Robbie, that character had hopes and dreams and individuality and some depth to her, and she was totally self-aware.
Sure.
She knew that people didn't trust her, that she came across as unhinged, and
sure.
she really leveraged that. I thought that was a little bit more brilliant than this. This is sort of like, I don't know, she's going to just light a fire. She's going to set a fire, set the piano on fire in the back of the room during...
Not even to escape, just to hang out.
Just to see how, I'm so unhinged, I'm just going to see what this does. Like, that's just...
But this is not a conversation about Joker. Again, like, we've already spent 10 minutes talking about Joker already.
So this is why I very much like Harley Quinn, the animated series, because you have what I would consider the essential components of Harley Quinn. You don't have to have her in the lab coat and the psychiatric unit treating patients to know this person is full of depth and emotional. She's emotionally dynamic, and she's smart, and she's savvy, and she has motivation.
Yeah.
And she's not exactly perfect, and I think that's why people like her. She's imperfect. She's full of flaws. She's still discovering herself. And I think that's, that makes her a good protagonist. I don't know what you're going to do with her in these grounded films. But here, each episode seems to be expanding the story of Harley finding her individuality and her freedom.
And not just speaking about Harley, but using Harley as a proxy to speak about ongoing problems that women have to deal with on a regular basis, whether you're in the crime world or not. Like this particular episode, So You're in Need of a Crew, or So You Need a Crew, is great because it's really talking about glass ceilings and how no matter how hard a woman tries to get ahead in any place in the world, closely guarded by men. They can't seem to break through that glass ceiling.
Even in the underworld of Gotham's society of villains, it's a man's world.
Yeah.
And it's as if she's kind of discovering some of these challenges and barriers as she ascends. Mm-hmm. And it's a good story. It starts off with Harley on a caper. She's fighting some baddies, and she's going after a nuclear warhead. It looks like. Doesn't really matter because the Joker commandeers her heist and says, I've got it from here, and he successfully takes over. And she realizes that working alone is really challenging, that she needs a bunch of henchmen or hench people. Mm-hmm. And she goes to a talent agency called UTI.
Yes.
Not so subtle. The UTI, where you get representation, and then you figure out how to get matched with the right goons, the right talent to help you in your crimes. It's very cute.
Yeah. And they are more than eager to help her find her hench people. That is until they discover that she's still not with the Joker again. She has solidified her departure from that organization. Thus, she does not have the credibility to be able to bring anything to the table for UTI. And UTI dismisses her quickly.
They don't take her on as a client, and that's lesson number one. Well, maybe lesson number two. Lesson number one was you need backup. Like, you can't do this alone, no matter your gender. You just need people. But lesson number two is very, very gender-based, which is, who are you associated with? Especially as a woman in the villain society. Like, do you have, like you said, do you have credibility? And are you associated, especially if you're a woman, are you associated with a powerful male figure? And her history did her good. But now that she's announced that she's no longer with the Joker, she's no longer going to have those connections. Yeah. So they close the door on her.
Yeah. From that point, she decides to take it into her own hands, and she goes to the diviest, villainiest bar where, you're going to find hench people. And that does not prove incredibly successful. She does manage to meet another longtime fave and a favorite of yours, Clayface, who happens to be playing the Southern bartender behind the bar, who introduces himself with that unmistakable Alan Tudyk Southern accent.
Oh, is that who that is? That he?
I said unmistakable.
Oh, I mistook.
And
I didn't recognize it at first.
And he reveals himself to be Clayface, quote unquote, playing the part of the Southern bartender behind the counter. And everyone else in the bar leaves when another opportunity brings itself to the doorstep. Everybody else sort of takes off. So once again, she is left without anyone.
They don't really pay any attention to her.
No.
And they're all men in this seedy bar, right? I didn't really notice any other women in there. It's as if, they really, not only did they ignore her, the other opportunity was far more risky, like basically guaranteed death, and like jumping into a portal to your doom. And she, is seen as not good enough to partner with.
Yeah. She swears, by the way, as you just mentioned, the portal, she swears that she will never send anyone in her care knowingly to their deaths, whereas the next villain is only sending his hench people to their deaths via this magical portal. And they would still rather do that than go work for Harley. Due to certain circumstances, she finds herself with the ability to hire a couple of different misfits of the villain world. One of them being an incredibly narcissistic, I'll just say it, woman hater. He's got a real problem with women. Why don't you discuss this character of very small stature?
This is Dr. Psycho.
Dr. Psycho.
Well, you said small stature.
Yes.
So, and very, very small.
Yeah, very, very small. He is.
He's very small.
He is very small.
He tends to work alone. Mm-hmm. He's very powerful. He's telepathic, and has the ease of just using his mind to. It's almost like a combination of, I don't know, like a Professor X and a Green Lantern situation. Like, can actually manifest things using his mind,
right,
and create weapons and tools. And then also has such a powerful brain that can get into people's psyches. And
we should say that for as small as he is, he has a very large head, which you can only assume is filled with a oversized cranium, which increases his... What?
Does it? Wait, what are you about to say?
No. You would think, you would assume that all of it increases his intelligence and increases his capacity to control other people's minds, which it does. I mean, no one's going to argue that the guy isn't, sort of high IQ level. But as we've learned, high IQ can often mean low EQ. The guy has no social awareness, does not know what to say around other people or about other people, and gets himself into trouble, becomes canceled when on television he is sort of in a talk show environment and decides he's going to speak for the gigantic woman next to him who is so large she can't even fit on the screen. The camera cannot see her face. And when she is asked questions, he answers them. And he says it's because he already knows what she's going to say because he can read her thoughts. And so she thinks it and he says it. She then corrects him. She puts him in his place on television. He calls her a name that should never...
that we will not say on this
should never
podcast.
Be used to call someone,
which is how he got on the show to begin with. He was doing some... impression management.
Yes.
And he gets into trouble again. This man cannot help himself.
Yeah.
It's as if he does believe he is superior to women. So there is that there. There's some narcissism there this is why he works alone. He thinks that he can do things better than anyone else and leverages that. The grandiosity, the self-centeredness, the I'm above the law, like all of these things come into play with him as a villain.
Yeah.
He's willing to work with Harley Quinn. And they don't get too much into this, but I'm suggesting that she is one of few women that will actually give him a chance. And not in partnering up.
Well, he's been completely canceled. No one is going to give him a chance. Even the Legion of Doom comes out and publicly decries his language and his actions, and they say that he is not welcome back to any incarnation of the Legion of Doom, including the Junior Legion of Doom. And so now he is completely on his own regardless. He has no backup of any sort. And so, yes, she is the only person willing to give him a shot, but more to the fact that she is the only place he can go if he wants to continue his life of crime. So he has to prove himself again, not only to the world, but especially to the Legion, that he can be a good villain. We'll see how that goes.
He's not very likable.
He is not very likable. I mean, hilarious.
Yeah.
But for all the wrong reasons.
I think the only thing you start to realize about him is that he must his upbringing is important here. We don't know anything about him yet, but he must constantly feel like he has to prove himself, that his overcompensating behaviors, his compensatory behaviors are so extreme. That must come from years and years and years of being talked down to and underestimated because of his... Yeah.
Yes, literally talked down to.
I did say because of his size.
It's the classic, what people often refer to as a Napoleonic complex, because of the fact that Napoleon was a short person, and they believed that that's basically what led him. This is untrue, by the way, but
what part?
Well, the notion that the only reason this man went to go conquer the world was because he was small. That is played to very brilliant comical effect in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Also in Time Bandits, especially in Time Bandits, because the Napoleon, Ian Holm in Time Bandits, I'm talking about the movie, not the new series on Apple Plus. No one's talking about that series. He only likes people that are smaller than him. And so there's the brilliant scene where he's watching the puppets. He likes puppet shows because they're smaller than him. He likes the little people because they're smaller than him. And when the two generals who are standing to either side of him are standing much taller than he looks up and he's like, what did I tell you about standing that close to me? It's like I'm in the bottom of a well. And the notion is that is why Napoleon decided to conquer the world, was because he was small. Not true. There were other reasons. But what do you think of that? I mean, is that what they're going for here? Are they going for, because he is such a small person, he is compensating, overcompensating?
I think so.
Or is it because of the narcissism in him? Like, because he is clearly an intelligent human being and he does have the ability to read minds. He has powers. Like, what is driving that overcompensation? Or is it a little bit of both?
It could be a little bit of both.
Okay.
For sure. He doesn't show a lot of need for people to approve of him or adore him.
No.
He shows some interest in becoming a powerful supervillain, like he wants to be effective and successful as a supervillain.
Sure.
But I'm not seeing a lot of neediness there, like in the quiet of his own, his massive brain. Is there in there some need to just be loved by people? I'm not seeing that.
But I seem to care.
Yeah, but I am seeing some potential that he's resentful and wants to prove himself, which is why he does what he does. Yeah. He's not super complicated yet, but we've just been introduced to him, and I know he has a lot of screen time in future episodes.
Right.
Let's talk about Clayface.
Let's talk about Clayface.
One of my favorite villains.
Once again, a failed actor, doesn't really know what to do if he's not playing a part. And again, this is played really, really well, especially toward the end of the episode, where he is being told to present himself to Maxie Zeus as a postal worker, as someone who can just deliver mail and get Maxie distracted while they try to break into his home. Because again, Harley went to Maxie Zeus earlier in the episode to try to get tips from him on how to be a good villain, how to run and manage hench people. And once again, as women tend to get, she was harassed sexually by Maxi Zeus, who seems to have a fixation on his male parts. Going so far as to show everyone, but also to create statues.
We gotta pause on Maxi Zeus for a second.
Okay.
Because when we first see Maxi Zeus, he's giving this power lecture.
Yeah.
He's like one of these inspo speaker. Clearly, like, this is the kind of person on LinkedIn who has like 20 descriptors in their bio, like, you know, TED speaker
buzzwords.
And this speaker.
It's just all buzzwords.
And it's like, what is it that you do? He is the expert on being a supervillain and has decided to make these like short presentations to, I think it's a scam. Like, obviously it's
obviously a scam, and he's not even really considered a supervillain by most standards. When we hear the news report later after Harley has sort of given him his comeuppance, the news reporter even calls him self-proclaimed supervillain. So it's like he's sort of using this stature as a villain to sell tickets to his inspo speeches.
Yeah.
But he doesn't actually seem to be much of a supervillain, if that makes sense.
Meaning he's not actually living the life.
Yeah,
like
he's not necessarily. He has clearly committed crimes in the past. They make reference to it, but the big one that gets the applause seems to have been many years ago. If that makes sense, and that, by the way, was him deciding to rob the Olympics. He
like what
he stole all the gold medals at the Olympics.
It was like the 96 or the 94 Olympics. So it was clearly a while ago.
Yeah. That's his claim to fame. And apparently he's just been doing inspirational speeches about that event ever since.
He's kind of a fraud, but he's very recognizable in today's world. Like the kind of person who hasn't actually been successful, but continues to put himself out there. Also, I love that his name is Maxi Zeus because he kind of is maxing. You know what maxing is?
I think it's probably self-explanatory for those listeners who don't know what maxing is.
Well, I mean, so it's like reaching how to reach your peak, your limit.
Yeah.
Looks maxing is, I'm actually going to look this up for you. Do you know what looks maxing is?
Again, I would assume it's maxing out your potential in your own aesthetic. I do not. I feel like I'm being tricked here.
No, you're not being tricked.
Okay, so what is looks maxing?
Looks maxing is a trend that involves enhancing one's physical appearance to become more attractive. It originated on incel message boards in the mid 2010s and became popular on social media, particularly on TikTok in the 2020s.
God. I don't even like knowing this now.
The goal of looks maxing is to meet a set of criteria for attractiveness. And I'll say this is more leaning toward male gender because it did start out with incel men, boys.
Sure.
Which focuses a lot of looks maxing focuses on the masculine look. So focuses on the jawline being stronger, eyes being deeper, a certain physique, a muscular physique. There's lots of cool techniques. And when I say cool, I mean terrible techniques that looks maxers get fixated on. So soft maxing is just a little bit less extreme. So maybe you're exercising a certain amount of times a week, you're moisturizing your skin, you're taking care of your face. But hard maxing is like, when I think of Maxi Zeus, I kind of think of hard maxing. These folks use steroids. They get hair transplants. They have cosmetic surgery. They do more serious things to their body to gain this image, this actual look of
Greek god.
Of meeting their physical potential. Like, I look like a dud, but I can look much better if I did these 20 things a day. I forgot his name, but you know that guy who's like dedicating his whole life to science, and he's like eating 80 pills a day.
Albert Einstein.
No. Oh. I don't even want to say his name on our podcast, but he's like an extreme, one would call him an extreme I can't even say it. Looks maxer, or into looks maxing, because he's
dedicated his entire life
all
to
he
science.
does is like, you know, the ice baths and some unscientific strategies every single day.
I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, you do.
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
No.
Definitely a looks maxer.
I'm not even going to look him up.
Okay,
people
don't
know what
do
it.
that.
People. I'm on a tangent. But I just love that Maxi Zeus is called Maxi Zeus, because I'm thinking about this kind of person,
Sure,
who is just fixated on how he looks like, how he's coming across, these statues of his body. Now he's particularly interested in his lower region, his groin, and all of these statues are showing what that looks like. It's bonkers. Like, this guy. So to your point, and thank you for bringing this up too, when they're alone together after his presentation, he basically starts to talk to Harley in a way that makes her uncomfortable. She's innocently asking him for advice on how do I advance in this career. You are a high profile celeb, like, you've got everyone talking about you. What do I need to do? I think he's the person who tells him, no bad guy will ever work for a woman. So that's the lesson coming up. But before he says that, he exposes himself and suggests that they have sex together. And it's assaultive and it's very direct. You know, we've talked about this on the show before, actually, with the animated series, where it wasn't Harley Quinn, it was another female character in a Harley Quinn episode.
I'm going to go with Poison Ivy.
No. It was the casting couch one, where there was a very uncomfortable suggestion that the actress
in Batman the Animated Series, there was a
I'll look it up.
Couch
where the actress is supposed to exchange sex for a job, and it's very clear what's going on. Yeah, I'm going to find the episode for you.
Yeah,
but here it is.
Our listeners are yelling the title.
I know,
out
they
to
know
us
it
right now.
They know it.
I can't even think of. I can't even think that they.
No, we were
went
shocked.
so hard.
We were shocked.
Okay.
Do I can.
No, yeah.
Want me to look it up?
Yeah, no. I totally believe you. I think it's there. I just don't remember the episode very well. I kind of remember the idea that you're talking about. I just don't remember the specifics of it. Interesting. Speaking of casting, though, you had asked about Clayface originally before we started talking about Maxi Zeus. I steered us off onto Maxi.
Yes, sorry.
I mean, he's a whole lot of actors I've known.
In what way?
In my... And I should clarify, because I know a number of actors right now. None of them apply to this, but people I have known throughout my history, especially living out here in Los Angeles, is I have known a lot of those people who are performative 100% of the time, because they don't truly have a personality of their own. So they are constantly trying to fulfill some need by presenting characters, and Clayface is that person. I genuinely feel for Clayface, because he is not someone that I think is trying to be a villain of any kind. He's just constantly looking for parts. And the villains are willing to give him parts and they're juicy roles. And sometimes they're not really roles at all. He has to inhabit it himself. And we do see in a scene where he is deciding what the backstory of his postal worker is. Harley could not care less.
Let's play that little clip.
I have that clip here. Here we go. We're going to take a listen to it now.
Clayface, you go knock on the front door and pretend to be the mailman to distract him.
What do we know about this mailman? What are his dreams, his fears, his raison d'etre?
Gives a shit. You're just a mailman.
Brilliant! That's what the world sees. Just a mailman. But yes, we know better, don't we? He was a horribly neglected little boy, as he grew up in a cage. The only time he heard rumblings from the outside world was when the mailman came, which is why he spent his whole life dreaming of being one.
Yeah, no, none of that. You're just a mailman. Deliver the mail.
So, yeah, you can see Harley doesn't care. She just needs him to ring the doorbell, deliver the mail, serve as a distraction. But that's not how an actor like Clayface is going to roll. He needs to inhabit the role. He needs to be in character. You can't just say, hey, go deliver some mail.
Let me ask you a question since you're a trained actor. Wouldn't it be a good idea for him to have some additional sense of material? Like, it's not just that you're a postal worker. He does more than just drop off the mail. He actually has to distract Maxie Zeus for several minutes, maybe as much as an hour, while Harley Quinn and Dr. Psycho go in and try to find the gold.
Well, originally, he wasn't told that he was going to distract him for an hour. It's his backstory that gets him invited into the house, and he sits down with Maxie for an hour trying to convince him that he is his long-lost son, which is... So now we understand that the level of performer, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, this is basically a soap opera actor at this point.
Yeah.
He is being given the material of this backstory where Maxie met my biological mother long ago, and after one amazing night, suddenly...
He makes it so dramatic. It could just be small talk. Like, he could distract him with small talk.
Yeah.
Instead, he creates this elaborate, dramatic, emotion-filled backstory. But the thing about Clayface, at some point, someone calls him a mudslide. Without these characters...
Maxie calls him a mudslide.
He's just a pile of dirt. And I mean that really, unless he thinks of himself with these characters in mind, he's a pile of dirt.
Yes.
He's nothing. So I understand that he has to build these narratives.
Yes.
And feel something real, feel connected to other people.
Yeah.
Because if he doesn't do that, he really is just a blank slate.
Yeah.
I believe back in the day, again, they haven't gone into his backstory, but we know that Clayface was a person, was an actor, had a look to him. And then that all got messed up. In many versions, it's his fault.
Yeah. We don't know what this particular version is.
Yes, he must have gotten too self-indulgent. Maybe he was looks-maxing.
You may have been looks-maxing.
And he took it too far, and he ended up turning into mud.
Well, that's the Batman the Animated Series version, right?
Yeah.
Where he's got the makeup that is constantly, like, if I remember correctly, like, didn't we see scenes in his trailer where he was sort of like, his face was starting to melt, but he had to go put the putty on to basically... to be that Lon Chaney type actor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's interesting.
He's funny.
He is willing to partner up with Harley Quinn And it may be that
Clayface?
Yes.
He's excited about it.
Yes. And it may be that she sees his potential and she believes in him. And
I don't think she sees his potential, and I don't think she believes in him. No, I think she is taking what she can get. She has put together the island of misfit toys.
Here's why I think that, though, because toward the end of the episode, when Maxie Zeus realizes this guy's a fraud,
yes,
and actually gets incredibly violent and is willing to kill him, Harley takes a pause and is hoping that Clayface can stand up for himself and be strong enough to combat and face this guy.
Yes.
So she shows that she believes in him in that
I just don't think that belief was there when she took him on.
Okay.
I think she took him on because he was willing to come on.
It could be that too.
and so, yes, there is a brawl that ensues where Clayface is just in no way a match for Maxie Zeus. And while Maxie is about to kill Clayface, and how you think you're going to do that, I don't know. But when he is about to kill Clayface, who really comes to Clayface's rescue?
Harley Quinn.
No. Dr. Psycho. In that he uses his mind control.
Yes.
He uses his ability, his telekinesis, to be able to get Clayface out of the way before Maxie comes down with the big, heavy statue that he was going to kill Clayface with. Harley makes it clear, like she doesn't prevent him from killing Clayface so much as she distracts him momentarily enough to say, I sent him here. He works for me. I came and did this. Yeah. I stole your gold medals. She is putting it in the face of Maxie Zeus that she has done the unthinkable as a woman who wants to be a supervillain in Gotham City. She has successfully robbed Maxie Zeus, and she doesn't stop there. She is a woman who successfully beats the living heck out of Maxie Zeus. Leaves him on one of his statues out in his own front yard. And that's when the reporter reports that Maxie was found outside, beaten, pummeled. And the message is that Harley and her crew are not to be messed with, that they are legit. So they are using Maxie Zeus as a testimonial, if you will.
Yeah. The part in this episode that I found the most interesting were the moments around why a woman is questioned as a supervillain or as a leader of supervillains. The conversations between Poison Ivy and Harley are very real to life. Poison Ivy tries to instruct Harley on what it means to be a super villainess. She explains that there is a glass ceiling in Gotham, and that as long as you don't try to bust through it, no one cares. That's why Ivy has managed to stay where she is, at the level that she is, because at no point in time has she ever tried to overcome the other supervillains in Gotham. She is simply staying in her lane. And she tells the story of another character who had the ability to bring fairy tale characters to life, and she used them as hench people. And Zatanna and the Justice League basically relegated her to life as a tax representative because they turned her into a book about tax laws. Mm-hmm. And so it was like, not only are we going to stop you from doing what you're doing, we're going to make sure you're never able to do it again, because we're going to magically turn you into a book. And it's a boring book that is going to just change your trajectory forever. You get to a point where you don't hate Poison Ivy for expressing
I never hated Poison Ivy. She is simply someone who knows the game.
Right. There's a sense of respect for someone who says, you know, when you risk a lot, and many of us have, there are some outcomes that a lot of us just don't look forward to.
Right.
And we've seen a few here. You could be, like you said, some of these female leaders are relegated to disempowered, inanimate objects.
Yes.
Some of these female leaders are sexually assaulted when trying to work with their male counterparts. Should they should they call it out? Should they complain? Should they point out the inequities in the system? They get into more trouble. So it's true. If the more you are outspoken, the more risk you take that you could be disempowered, you could be demoted, you could be isolated.
Yeah.
One of the worst things that can happen, that did happen to Harley when she separated from Joker, was the abandonment by other people. She just was completely alone and had to build everything from scratch. And I did appreciate some of the conversations around that, and the idea that there is a double standard. These male supervillains can be unhinged and completely emboldened to do the most heinous, unpredictable, wild, bonkers things. But when a woman does it, she's a crazy bee. And if you're a crazy bee, no one wants to work with you.
Right.
So that double standard mixed up with this, the sense of, for lack of better phrasing here, like the sense of like the added mental health piece, I just find it to be really interesting, because the history of psychology has been really tainted and held back by the same kind of sexism, that women were given, overdiagnosed, given these sort of profiles just based on gender and just based on men controlling the field. And you had these outlandish, wild diagnoses like hysteria.
I was going to say, you're saying these hysterical women weren't suffering from mental health issues?
It's interesting. I actually did want to fulfill a part of my brain that was like, do you remember what hysteria was? It was, now obviously we're talking about like late 1800s, sure, Freudian times, both medical and psychiatric characterizations of women being, emotionally and physically out of control. And when I reminded myself of what the psychiatric definitions were for hysteria, I found the following. The symptoms of hysteria are grouped into 4 stages. The epileptoid stage, presumably like epilepsy.
Sure. I mean, it's right there in the
seizures.
In the title, yeah.
Listen to this one. The second stage. The stage of clownism or contortion. The stage of hallucinations and passionate attitudes. And the final stage, delirium.
Oh, yeah.
But all these things could just be normal and completely otherwise socially acceptable ways in which women experience their psychological, emotional, and physical states. And it's just pathologized by men who control the field, who control the discipline, and want to oppress and disempower women who might be too much, right?
Yeah.
So when Harley says that being just as emboldened and just as unhinged as these male supervillains, but seen as completely different, it's such a double standard. It's so true.
And honestly, she's not even as unhinged as some of her male counterpoints.
Point.
I mean, when you look at the Joker is significantly more unhinged than Harley, but they're going to look at her as less of a person for it.
For sure. Many of the male supervillains just wild out. They're just doing things that, again, if she were to do, she would be seen as unpredictable and too crazy.
Well, and that's the thing is, like, the men, they've got to brand themselves, right? Like, they've got to be outrageous so that they can make a name for themselves. Women doing the same thing are just taking up too much space in the eyes of those men.
Yeah.
And how do you compete with that? And, it's unacceptable to think that way. But, you talk about Freudian days. I mean, it still happens today. I mean, obviously, the writers know exactly what they're doing. They are presenting through satire very real things that women are dealing with on a daily basis right now.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And not only do women in the workplace deal with this kind of stress, there are other stressors that are particularly different for women in the workplace settings that create, additional hardships for us, where it's like, we've got to constantly be on. We've got to constantly show that we're just as intelligent, just as experienced, just as trained as our male counterparts. It's true that bias still exists and we're combating it every day. You cannot have a bad day. You cannot make one mistake. You're constantly on eggshells. And it's true also, especially during the coronavirus era, where women were doing it all. I'm not saying men weren't doing anything. Women were taking on a tremendous amount of caretaking and home responsibilities, in addition to the work that they were already responsible for.
Sure.
It's so interesting because of that. A lot of research came out like a couple of years after 2020, demonstrating the stressors and the challenges that women were experiencing handling caregiving, parenting, teaching responsibilities because their kids are at home, as well as having to be perfect at work and combating the gender-based bias that they see. I thought that this handled that idea, that concept really well. And at the end, it's not as if suddenly all of the male supervillains were celebrating Harley. I think we're going to continue to see a more realistic situation in Gotham where she's going to have these wins, but she still needs to fight hard. Yeah.
But the first testimonial's out there. It's on the news. That's all we need to get the ball rolling, right? And Ivy now has a little bit. I think Ivy has more respect for Harley now, and maybe even to some degree looks up to Harley now, because Harley has proven that there isn't a ceiling that can't be broken. Now, if only she can hold on to that newly acquired power, and if she can just build on this team of miscreants and deviants and all the other ints words you want to use to describe her misfit henchmen, all of whom could be villains in their own right, but just like Harley, none of them fully, I'm not going to say they're not capable on their own, but they just wouldn't be the same without others around them, if that makes sense.
It does.
I think that this is a good team.
Yeah.
And it's just going to get better because there are characters that are going to join the team that I enjoy very much. We're just not allowed to talk about that yet. We haven't met them. Dre, I actually thought for as short of an episode as this felt like this one just breezed through, I felt there was a lot to take in, especially as a middle-aged cis hetero white man myself. The message comes through, pretty clear.
Yeah. You've got to start looks maxing.
Yeah.
Is that what's coming up for
anyone
you?
who's watching on YouTube right now?
Well, don't do that.
Like and subscribe.
Don't pull your muscles down like that. That's just gonna.
No. You mentioned moisturizing, and you mentioned you soft maxing versus hard maxing. I just need to.
Okay.
All right.
You know that the little the jaw chewing, like you get that little piece of plastic and you like gnaw on that little piece of plastic. That's soft maxing. So like it's supposed to work out your jaw muscles to give you more of a masculine, squared, angular jaw. So like people buy these little plastic, like they almost look like little chew toys or like little rubber retainer type things, and you just like sit there and chew it. And I don't think any medical research actually backs up that this works, but it's hugely popular. I'm just saying.
That's how little I feel I need to max, I suppose. I'm not. Also, I mean, I've currently got a beard, but when I'm not with beard, or at least when I was younger, obviously as I get a little older, I get a little rounder. But when I was younger, friends of mine who were artists would be like, Brian, you're so easy to draw because it's just 5 lines. It's just like there you go. That, and I always took that as a compliment to be like, I've got the strong face. But now I'm okay. I don't need to go chewing on plastic to strengthen my jaw muscles. Don't care. All right. With that being said, Drea, why don't you tell the good folks where they can find you online?
You can find me on my website, drdreapsychology.com, on socials at Dr. Drea Psychology. And as we talked about, go ahead and send us some voice messages on drdreapsychology.com.
Very cool. You can find me on Instagram at B_Ward028. You can find us both on Instagram at The Arkham Sessions. Email us at arkhamsessions@gmail.com. Come follow us on Facebook. Come join patreon.com/Arkham Sessions, where you can have your name shouted out. This episode, thank you very much, Aaron Wenrick, for your support. We really appreciate it. You can also get your name shouted out by joining, again, patreon.com/Arkham Sessions, joining the $5 tier. That gets your name shouted out. And then you can follow our family over at Fanbase Press, where you can listen to other podcasts and read their news and also read their fantastic comics. They are a good group. You're going to love them. Till next time, I'm Brian Ward.
I'm Dr. Drea Letamendi.
And together we are
The Arkham Sessions.
She demands perfection, doesn't she? And she'll get it.